Hello and welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast. This is episode 39, but it's also a special episode. The special episode alarm is calling. I hear it. It says, "This one's quite special."
It's a creepy alarm.
We are here to chat about some of our favourite games of 2020. Our games of the year, you might say.
Oh my goodness.
You may have seen the video that we've got on the YouTube channel. You may have read some of the articles on the website where we're chatting about kind of our individual favourite games of the year. But here we'll be kind of covering some of the stuff we couldn't discuss there just because of space reasons, really, and going through some of the games we've enjoyed in 2020. You know, the parts of 2020 we managed to enjoy between literally everything else.
Or in case you only ever listen to the podcast and never watch any of the rest of our stuff or read any of the rest of the stuff, now you'll find out.
Yeah.
that tiny circle on the Venn diagram just over here. I am very delighted to be joined by the entire Dicebreaker team.
Hey.
Is this a podcast first? I think it is, isn't it?
I think the first
must be,
podcast
actually.
may have had us all on.
It's too much chaos.
No, I don't think.
No, yeah,
I
I'm not sure it was.
Oh,
I think this is a red letter day.
Yeah, indeed. Strap in,
Fantastic.
everybody.
It's about to be bought by Peter Jones. That's such a terrible reference.
When you said Red Letter Day, Wheels, I know what that means, but it took me a few seconds and I was like, is it a day when you receive a red envelope in the post? And then I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And then I kept going in my head and now I understand.
I only know about that
Scarlet
phrase because
letter.
of Half-Life 2, to be honest. I'm not sure I'm in a better boat. But yeah.
We'll introduce ourselves. Let's go around. Johnny, thank you for being here. How are you
Hello,
doing?
it is I, Johnny Chiodini. I'm head of video at Dicebreaker, and I am overjoyed to be here. Although I was thinking this morning about how long it's been since I played Crokinole. And then I started thinking about the Office Crokinole board, which we've played once.
Like once, yeah.
So, yeah. Because I was thinking about, this year and just like trying to come up with some of my favourite board games. It's like, this has been a great year for releases, but that just means I've got a whole bunch of games that I've never played on my shelf waiting. Just waiting.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I'm well. Hello.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I feel like Crokinole is the game of the year every year.
Yeah.
In our hearts.
Yeah, since
Yeah,
the
yeah.
1860s.
For the last 300 years, yeah.
Of course, we're also joined by Alex Lolies. Hello, Lolies. Welcome back. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you for having me. In case you were wondering, and I know you all were wondering, what the bingo call is for episode 39, it's 39 steps.
Oh, wow.
That's it! And it gives you an explanation, and it goes from the 39 steps.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like that's a Simpsons joke.
Oh my god.
That's it. Like, we had
on a
38. I don't know.
I
Surely
thought it was a play, right?
I mean, it's
I
probably
would have
is.
thought that Bingo would be older than the 39 steps.
It probably is, but
Or maybe
maybe
like Bingo callers aren't older than the 39 steps.
Yeah, but also they probably upgrade them all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Right?
Got to make them modern. You know, there's modern references
modernise
like
them.
the 39 steps.
Yeah.
Kids don't want number references, they want cool Hitchcock films from the current era.
Maybe Bingo is sponsored by the 39 steps.
Now and forever.
quick
Yeah.
canvas. What century do you think Bingo was invented? In what century do you think Bingo was invented?
1700s.
19th.
18th.
I think the 18th.
Yeah, I think the 1800s.
16th
yeah.
century, so 1700s.
Oh.
Wow.
There you go.
Was it just like a load of lamb knuckles? That's
Yeah,
like, because dice
yeah.
started
They
out as
were
like knuckles,
Yeah,
right?
it's like.
Well,
is
they're
it an
just
ankle
balls,
bone?
though, aren't they?
I've tried to find some like that haven't just been, aren't just meat offcuts, because obviously once you roast a bone, it's no good for making dice out of. But yeah, I was trying to make some macabre D6s and it didn't work because I haven't found any. I'm just gonna have to
To
take
be
up
honest,
hunting.
you can probably make bingo pretty easily with a bag of some stuff, as long as everyone's got like a card that lists all of the stuff in a random
Yeah.
order.
Yeah, that's more of a tombola, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the apocalypse comes and we have nothing left except scraps, at least we can play Bingo.
Yeah, with the bones of our enemies.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo is a good game,
It
to
is.
be fair. I can I can see why it survived this long.
Well, I
Game of
mean-
the
Older
year
than Crocodile,
Yeah.
guys.
I literally
Game of
just
the
got
year
into
2020.
bingo as well after Disney
Ew.
Drag Bingo opened my eyes.
Oh, wow.
And now 2020.
I'm
So there you
also
go.
a big fan of bingo cards when you're watching things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Blues Brothers,
Huge.
like a square if they jump over a cop car or whatever.
Or like shot related bingo.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll try and finish the introductions. Wheels, hello.
Hello, Matt. There's 5 of us. Like it's no.
I know. This is
I applaud
why
your
you can only
efforts,
do
but-
this once
Yeah.
a year.
Train wreck comes but once a year.
Yes, hello. It is I, Michael Whelan Wheels, as I am so called on the podcast. I'm the other video producer who is an underling of Johnny Chiodini, our great dungeon lord. You have to
We are but
defeat
minions.
me and Lolies in a boss fight before you can reach Johnny and his chambers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And of course, last but not least, Alex Meehan.
Hey, I'm staff writer for Dicebreaker. Yeah, and if you have to defeat me, you have to come to Trashfire Land. Because that's
Oh, is
where
that
I
what you
am
call
right
me?
now.
There you go.
Isn't that just 2020
Yes.
though? Trash Fireland.
Yeah,
Aren't we
yeah.
all in Trash Fireland?
Oh, it does
Yeah,
look
this-
cozy though, Meehan. That little trash fire you got cooking up next to you.
It's the only way I can keep warm in my flat.
Yeah.
Get some
All the games
wieners
that
over
didn't get a
it.
good enough score.
This time of year, more than any, I'm fully embracing my persona as a London orphan, living by the trash fire in Victorian eras.
There you go.
Either an orphan or what was it? Some sort of hag? I can't remember.
No.
A waif, a stray waif.
Who knows? And who are you, mysterious and beleaguered stranger?
I'm Matt Jarvis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Dicebreaker, and I'm here to try and corral this lot into talking about the best games of 2020. Remember?
Good luck.
Well,
that
we're
Congratulations
7.5
to Game of
minutes
the Year.
down,
1600.
and that's just the intros.
Nailed it.
So-
Well, yeah, it's a different
Yeah.
episode. You know, we haven't got news to talk about, so you know, we gotta
Yeah.
find our time in other places.
We got to make
Flesh it
the
out.
news.
We are the
Today's
news.
headlines. When was bingo invented?
Bingo.
Yeah, bingo. Oh, we should blatantly do a bingo card for this episode once it's recorded.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
for
going to
sure.
write that down.
Wait, does that work? Because we already know what's.
Well, it's for people to
It's
watch
not for
or
us.
listen along with.
For the audience.
You know how our jobs are to
Yeah,
make
no,
things
but-
for other people.
no.
It's for us
Hold
in our
on, hold
personal archive.
on. You do a bingo card. You make a bingo card because you don't know what's coming and you reckon you can predict. Not because you already know the content.
No,
of the
you're right.
episode.
Fun. Let's not have any. Let's, well, bingo card.
I don't know how that would work.
If you've got your bingo card, audience, just tick off the square that says
If we did the
Wheels
bingo
drive
card now,
Johnny.
Yeah, Wheels just...
if we did the bingo card now, it would work. But if we already know what's coming, then it's more of a
Okay.
it's more of a
Anyway.
list of
Put on
contents.
the bingo card. Wheels is pedantic.
Yeah.
Johnny cries because Wheels makes him cry.
Cries?
Not really.
I don't know about
No.
cries.
Well, we're gonna get there.
Spits
No,
venom.
I'm assuming what's gonna happen in the future.
Oh,
of
I
this
see.
Episode.
No.
Oh, wow. Well,
You
that's
think
a very
this is,
Wow.
this is the
Well,
big
hopefully we
episode where
have a
Johnny
nice
cries?
Now Matt tries to get things back on the rail.
Oh, Meehan does her turnaround.
Didn't
that
do
nobody
it
can
during
see
the
on
intro. I
podcast.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
went, hey, which is why I laughed.
She might do it, yeah.
She's not
See,
being
that
introduced
is an
anymore.
example of something that somebody would put on a bingo card and they would be like, oh, damn, I didn't cross it off. But you already know it
Yes,
hasn't
all right,
happened.
I'm
there you go.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yikes.
Oh, no.
All right, let's talk about some board games,
Yes,
shall we?
please.
Rather than squabbling among ourselves.
Oh,
It's-
here's
I know it's
another one.
Christmas,
The
but-
gang don't talk about board games.
We'll ask someone on Twitter to make a Dicebreaker bingo card. What is that?
Gosh, haunting.
It's the Always Sunny. 'Cause it said the gang doesn't
Oh, I
talk
see.
about board games.
Oh.
It'd be our title card.
Just thought it sounded like a bit like a sad dog.
Michael Whelan.
That's
a
me.
sad dog.
So
The
we
dictionary, yeah.
no.
Mike
Michael
Whelan,
Sad Dogs
dog.
Whelan.
This podcast will be a little bit different from the usual ones, although not that different, it turns out. There's no news, there's no what we've been playing. Instead, we're going to just kind of go through some of the games that we have played this year. They're not in any particular order, is worth saying, because they're kind of in the order we remembered them in, and we couldn't be bothered to find release dates. So we're just going to go through and kind of chat about what we thought of each of them. It will include our games of the year proper, our kind of ultimate winners for each of us. But you can find out more about those on the video on the YouTube channel, which you might be watching now, or on the website. So these will kind of be more little bite-sized about
little
each
quality
of the
streams.
Yeah, hors d'oeuvres of the year.
Dinner of assorted chocolates.
So let's kick off. I'm actually going to immediately drop these two down a little bit. Let's kick off with a game that I think we all love. And we had to essentially agree that only one of us could pick it as our game of the year, because I think there's a good chance we might have all picked it. Which is...
That you could be talking about several games right now.
Yeah,
so I don't even...
fair enough. Okay, the game I am talking about is The Crew.
Hey!
I love it. It's
That's
so
a good game.
It's the
end. Move on.
Tick.
Wow.
But yes, Johnny, this was your game of the year, your ultimate game of the year for 2020.
What an absolute delight. It was my game of the year. Partly because, I went into this year really wanting to play it, because we played it for the very first time at PAX Unplugged in December, and instantly it was like, I want it. I need it. Like the
First thing we played, right?
Say again?
First thing we played.
Yeah.
Right?
So it was playing it with it was that's sorry, the first game we played. That's what you said. I thought you said that's when we played, right?
Sorry,
I was like, yes.
Yeah.
It was the first game we played at the show, and it was the best game I played at the show, because apart from Crocodile, because it was just there's lovely teamwork. There's sort of like tension and intrigue. You're not allowed to talk, which is a really fun thing. It's basically like it takes everything that's good about the mind and makes it infinitely better. And
I think Johnny probably enjoyed it even more, the fact that Wheels couldn't talk during the game.
that is...
Lolies,
it's unfair that you brought that up,
yourself.
whether or not that's an accurate statement. That was tremendous. And it's just lovely. And obviously, the amount of time we've had with our friends around the table this year has been limited, but I showed it to my friends and they were instant converts. And, we just had so many lovely moments of incredible tension where it was like, can we do this one? Can we do this one? Can we do this mission? And then everyone absolutely roaring when the right card got played. At one point, we genuinely didn't think we could win. In the very last cards, the very last possible chance we had to win, I played it just as Ground Control to Major Tom kicked off. And it was tops off around the room. Everyone was just everyone went bonkers. I love it. It's just, wholesome, great design, great theme. Get to pretend to be a spaceman.
We should also disclaimer that Johnny's house is made
made
entirely of
The running joke.
And he,
Go on.
he is planning to make a conservatory, so he does have a vested interest in them, printing more.
This is true.
Journalistically.
Well, I pre-ordered 2 copies because I was like, some games you just like, I'm gonna want this, but I'm also gonna want to lend it to people, and yada yada yada. I was like, just so I always have access to a copy, I'll buy a second copy, and then I gave one of the copies away because I know what I'm like. Gave it away at PAX East to one of the PAX team. So I bought another one. And I think that's okay. I think it's fine to have bought 3 copies of The Crew and counting.
I think it just speaks to
it's a bit of a running joke, isn't it?
It is nice to have a sort of backup reserve of your favourite game because there's been times where I'm like, oh, you would absolutely love this game, you should definitely get a copy. And then my friend has been like, oh, it's sold out everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had one to give to you, because this game was made for you. But obviously I'm not going to give you one.
Or sometimes you'll buy a game your friend has, because it's like, well, if I've got it, then if we fancy it, we're more likely to have it nearby. I do that a lot. I'm like, this game's brilliant. I'm going to make sure I've got it as well, so we can play it whenever we want.
Just stashing one in every friend's house. So you can just walk over to the mattress, cut it open and pull one out. Just like an emergency stash of the
Just
Crew.
punch through the drywall and pull out a copy of Cosmic Frog. Who's ready to enter Dimension Zero?
Well, speaking of Cosmic Frog, let's move straight over to Alex Lolies, who chose Cosmic Frog as your favourite game of this here year.
I did. I mean, you've mentioned it already. I think, or we've mentioned it already. There's a few games. I think pretty much all the games that have been chosen by us this year are games that like any of us could have chosen, because we all, there was just some really strong contenders for this year, and Cosmic Frog was one of those where Johnny and I were almost like in fisticuffs.
I wish I had tried to pull rank and say, no, I'll take Cosmic Frog, because you've had a copy now for ages and I've got it on pre-order and it's not coming until like January or February next year, so it'll be my game of the year next year.
I've painted my frogs and everything.
Want it?
Go! I did that on one of the painting
Give.
streams.
Lolies, stop flaunting your frogs in front of Johnny.
It's unbecoming of a lady.
I have to talk about it.
No, carry on.
Anyway, it's just a fantastic game. Like, Cosmic Encounter was one of the kind of first games I played when I got into modern tabletop games. And I really enjoyed it because, for anyone who doesn't know Cosmic Encounter, it's a game where you are just get to be a massive meanie to other people by like attacking them with your spaceships and like making alliances and breaking those alliances and all that kind of thing. And Cosmic Frog has taken that. It's got a lot of similarities, but it's taken that and it's just put frogs in there and it's just made it like really absurd. And I really enjoy that. Like, it's got that same kind of like, probably like even better kind of 70s art style. What's that, like a Magic Eye? Is that what that's?
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of like Magic Eye meets like Acid Wave kind of art style.
Yeah. And it's just, you get these massive frogs and you get this beautiful neoprene mat that you play on, and you're playing as frogs who are like eating part of this planet, and you're like punching each other as well, though, at the same time, and you can punch each other
and like, pull bits of earth out to eat them yourself. And if you really hit a frog hard, you kick it into a different dimension.
Into the ether.
And so
I've never really hit a frog hard.
well, then you haven't lived, because you can send them
out,
like 4 dimensions over. And one of the things I really like about this game is that the turn order is determined by drawing cards. And so if you're all in another dimension, every time your card is drawn, you get to store it. So when you return, sure, you were punted into a different dimension, but you come back with like 4 goes to take, and you just wreck everyone up. It is good.
Yeah, and you all have like special abilities that are secret as well. So I can't even remember what any of them. I think some of them make you like better at fighting other frogs, and some of them.
Yeah, it's like real frogs.
That's the main one I remember.
There were a few cards where we picked them up and we went, what? Like,
I feel like
no
every
way.
time we picked up a new card, we were like, wait, what? And it just kept like, all of the cards are like equally as good as each other. I just love everything about it. I love the artwork. I love the theme. I obviously it's kind of got similarities to another game that I already really like. So it was kind of an easy one for me this year to take a top spot. And like, you know, Weird and Wonderful. What's not to love?
I have to admit that not only did I not realise, like, I feel stupid for not only not realising the similarities between Cosmic Frog and Cosmic Encounter, but also not realising, of course, Lolies would absolutely love Cosmic Encounter. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, I mean, what a game. It's one of those games, though, that because there's so many different roles, it can like play completely different, and it can be like quite a lot, especially if you're like starting out in board games. And I remember feeling like it was quite a lot at the time. I haven't played in ages, because it's just one of those games you do kind of sit down. You do need to take like some time to play, and you do need to play with people who don't mind getting aggressive. And
game that's come out this year, I believe it came out this year, that I might be getting for Christmas. If Father Christmas is feeling
oh god, are you
generous
dropping
this
hints?
year.
Are we supposed to be doing this?
No, my
The
my
dads
mother
are sweating.
is presumably doing this. That called Cosmic Encounter Duel.
oh yeah,
Which is a 2-player version of Cosmic Encounter that came out this year. Matt,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That I spotted, and I was like, okay, I really want to try this because I really like Cosmic Encounter. It's one of the first games I played as well, Lolies, and if you can set it up right, then new players don't get too overwhelmed, because there are certain aliens that are better for beginner games than more challenging ones. But obviously, with the current pandemic and living with just one other person, having a 2-player version of that sounds really interesting. So
yeah, you'll have to tell me how it is.
I will, if I get it.
I'd say, like, I think one of my favourite things about Cosmic Frog, and especially now that I've made the connection in my head, is that, like, I do feel very stupid. Is that one of the things about Cosmic Encounter is that you have all this massive selection of different races that you can play as, and then you pick one, and then you're just kind of locked in for the rest of the game unless you play, like, one or two of them which can sort of swap. But with Cosmic Frog, like, you can shed your skin whenever you want, right? And you'll be like, I'm bored of this skill, I want a new one. Or sometimes literally there will be some kind of wave of mutation or something, and it's like, you have to change your card unless you want to pay for it, kind of thing. So it does force you to sort of like flick through all of them, and that state is always changing, which is really fun.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Sure.
I've not played Cosmic Frog.
It's mint.
It's chaos at its finest.
Unfortunately. But that element particularly sounds interesting. The fact that you can change your abilities throughout the game. You're not just stuck with the one.
Yeah. All right. Nice. We will move on to the next game on this list, which is a game that kind of came out last year, but properly came out this year, that we all played, which is Cyberpunk Red. So if you've seen the YouTube channel, you would have seen us playing with co-designer Cody Pondsmith multiple times now, causing all kinds of chaos.
Yes.
And definitely not doing
as we want to do
real bad things for that world.
At no point did I accidentally release a plague. That is slander.
Still can't believe you did that.
But so we last year we played at PAX Unplugged. In fact, we played the Jumpstart kit for Cyberpunk Red, and this year the full core rulebook has come out, which we then played with Cody for PAX Online. And so, disclaimer: I think most of us have only very recently received the full rulebook.
Yeah, mine turned up 2 days.
So we've only played the Jumpstart kit so far.
So we haven't gone through in massive detail, but we've obviously played with those rules. And I'd never really played Cyberpunk before playing with Cody properly. I own 2020, but I'd never got around to playing it. I just happened to own it and flicked through. But I've really enjoyed it. I think that world is really interesting. I think the way that it handles net running, which is something that I did with my character, was really well handled. It didn't seem to interrupt the flow, despite it almost being like a split the party mechanic built into it. But I always felt like I was still part of the group, even though I was in cyberspace, kind of cracking through different layers.
That's one of the biggest changes, and it's the most significant and the most welcome, to be honest. Because before you could have been in in another part of the city, just talking to us over comlink, and it's still a thing in Shadowrun, like where the Decker is, basically like they're in the van outside, but they are, to all intents and purposes, like physically comatose, and so you end up wanting to babysit them or leaving them incredibly vulnerable. Whereas you were like a part of the action around us, and it made the stuff you were encountering feel more present to us as well. It's like, okay, we can't see this demon you're fighting, or trying to slip past or whatever, but if you get this wrong, it's going to have very real consequences for us. And it just, it felt so much more immediate, and I really liked that.
One thing I really like about Cyberpunk as a series is the fact that its world doesn't... You know how obviously sci-fi and fantasy are often put together as these two genres that kind of have very similar sort of ideas, where like in sci-fi, like for example, Mass Effect has biotics, it's basically magic. Like, I feel like Cyberpunk doesn't do that. I feel like Cyberpunk very much has its own distinct kind of, this is how things work, and the characters feel like they feel gritty isn't the right word, but like they're going around grabbing whatever they've got, like driving around in these kind of half-constructed vehicles, like raiding these sort of forgotten ruins, which are like just old skyscraper buildings. That it it's got those familiar sort of, oh yeah, I recognize how this feels, but it's still like it doesn't overstay its welcome in terms of, oh, this is the same thing I've kind of encountered, which is obviously, you know, one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of D&D is the fact that I feel like a lot of the stuff there, due to the fact that it's been around for so long, is kind of like derivative. And like, oh, okay, like this isn't really anything hugely original. Whereas I just think Cyberpunk and Red, in this example, has some really cool ideas, like with the way that net running works, that just make it stand out.
Yeah, I quite like how, to add to that as well, I quite like how the like setting that they have is quite focused, but has never been really that static. Like a lot of, like, I mean, we mentioned D&D, it's always the one that we compare to, but like D&D is sort of, here's a setting, and then it's like, okay, we'll just make a new setting rather than sort of like, you know, advancing what's happened in this place. Because a lot of the time people make up their own stories and characters will change in different ways from each other. Whereas, you know, Night City is almost like the extra character in the party, because it's like it's always progressing with each thing they put out. Like there's been wars, like parts of the city have been destroyed, and you can sort of like play through that and get sort of familiar. Even if you're jumping from like source book to source book, it feels like you're always kind of like playing with the same materials in a different light and progressing through the story as time is moving on, which is quite cool. You don't really see that all that much.
And because of the nature of the setting and the fact that we've got Red this year, it's given, you know, the creators like, you know, Cody and Mike like an opportunity to kind of make things. Obviously it's not 2020 anymore, it's like farther in the future, but they're obviously still drawing on you know, topics that are important at the moment. Like, and that's the way that Cyberpunk should be. It should be, you know, like commenting on things that are happening now, but in a way that is, you know, like bizarre or absurd or in that manner. So yeah,
it's also important to bear in mind that technically they're using this edition to fix Cyberpunk. I mean, if you argue it's broken, because, you know, people easily forget that 2020 wasn't the last version of Cyberpunk. The last edition was V3, and people did not like it. So now Cyberpunk is actually skewed back more toward the 2020 edition, which I think is quite intriguing.
Yeah. Let's stay on an RPG trend. Let's chat about Deadlands, which is another game that we've all played. Well, Deadlands: The Weird West specifically.
I'm spinning up Johnny.
Slowly vibrating. I mean, if you want to talk about an RPG that's fixed itself, boy oh boy, has Deadlands: The Weird West finally dealt with that horrible tonal problem in which the CSA, the Confederate States of America, still existed as a thing. But the game itself was like, no, Deadlands is not a racist world. It's like, there definitely is racism in this world if the CSA still exists, lads. But via the medium of creative writing and time travel, thankfully they've now changed it so the Union just won the Civil War, so that's nice. But yeah, Deadlands: The Weird West is the first new edition in, I want to say, like 14 years or something like that. Still running on Savage Worlds, but it's great. It's a really lovely book. It's really well thought out, and I love it a lot. I mean, Deadlands will always feel like home to me because it's the first RPG I ever played. But yeah, this is undoubtedly the game I've played the most of this year, because I've been playing in one campaign and running 2 others. So that's a lot, but that's because it's dead good. Done.
Oh, dead good. Huh?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to get my own copy of the new edition. And like, having gone from Reloaded to Weird West, like, obviously I don't notice huge amounts of changes because I'm not running the game so much, you know, but I have noticed that things have been streamlined thanks to the fact that it's based on the new Savage Worlds. Like, it just cleans some things up, the way that certain skills work, etc. But yeah, it's good.
Done.
It is good. I agree.
All right, cool.
Good game.
Let's chat about what should we chat about next? Why don't we talk about Baker Street Irregulars? Wills, it's time for you to tell us about your time in Victorian London as one of the scouts.
Sorry, I was putting the cat out, but I'm back now. Hello, Baker Street Irregulars. So yeah, I literally just wrote up, because we're doing a video on our favourite games of the year as well. I've literally just wrote up the script, so it's fresh in my mind. But my God, oh God, I'm bleeding as well. Okay, never mind, that's fine. Sorry, cats.
This is dramatic.
So yeah, Baker Street Regulars. For a little bit of context, this is part of a long-running series called Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which is a set of 4 now boxes, each containing sort of 10 cases set in the Sherlock world, but completely original, maybe like inspired by original Sherlock stuff, but not necessarily actual sort of carbon copies. And you play through them as a sort of choose your own adventure book style. So you're kind of like looking at a big old map of London that comes out of the box that you spread out across the table, and everything is just completely littered with numbers. You select a number and you turn to that part of the book and it will give you information. So this is a series that's been running for a long time. A lot of people who are into detective sort of games have hailed it as like one of the best. So that series has been sort of written by basically the same people up until now, where a new sort of kid on the block, Dave Neal, who is a massive Sherlock fan. I think it's like a doctorate in something. Smart man, but is basically like a real Sherlock aficionado. Came in, sat down with this long-established series that everyone thought was great, and just made it 100 times better. Like, it must have been really daunting to sit down with something that's so well loved and so many people like, and to just completely revolutionize it with such subtle changes, but also just the quality of writing in this box is incredible, and something that I don't shy away from in both the review that we've already put out and the sort of micro version that we're going to put on the YouTube channel for the Game of the Year list. This is some of the best tabletop writing I've ever read. It is absolutely fantastic, and if you haven't played it yet, just go out and grab it, because it will sort you out for multiple weekends. Every case, apart from, I've said this a few times, but apart from maybe one, it just keeps getting better and better and better. All the way up to the epic like finale where you play the 10th case, and it's like a culmination of all of the things that have been sort of working in the background of every other case as time has been moving on in between each one, and you're scrolling through all of the previous newspapers that you had in previous cases looking for clues, and it's just incredible. Like I can't stress enough how great it is, and I need you all to buy the box and play it. So we can
you said you were gonna lend it to me, but then I guess we haven't been in this.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other.
Yeah, hey ho.
Yeah, maybe I'll post it as a Christmas.
That'll be lovely. Or I will pay for the postage happily.
No, it's treat it as my gift to you, Dad.
Oh, festive cheer.
Thanks.
That wasn't on the bingo card.
No.
Wheels being nice. What's going on?
I mean, it could have been on the bingo card.
Don't reopen old wounds.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued to play this because I've played original Consultant Detective, the Yastari like box from way back when, and then I played a couple of the new rebooted ones, which I think is where the 4 sets are.
Yes.
And I've always enjoyed them, but the writing has always just been a little bit stilted in parts. Like,
yeah, it's just kind of serviceable in the other books, isn't it? It's
yeah, and some of it's translated from French, and I think the localization wasn't particularly. It was quite straightforward in that they took the very literal meaning of some sentences, but it loses a bit of the flavor. So the fact that this delivers on that, but with the kind of writing chops to see it all the way through is really exciting, because those games are just great. They're really good mysteries. They're very straightforward. Yeah.
So to the point where the reason I sort of requested this book from the publisher to give it a look at and maybe do a review of is because I was thinking about doing a sort of like, why you should play Consulting Detective series, but then I was like, well, I haven't played a huge amount of Consulting Detective. I've only done like 1 or 2 cases every now and again from different books. So I might as well like grab them and go through them and say, which is the best, which one you should start with and all that kind of thing. And I played Consulting Detective first because it was I played Baker Street Regulars first because it was the new one. And now I can't go back to the other books because they just sort of pale in comparison a little bit. Yeah, it's that good where because I play it with my partner and we just sat down, we finished a case from the other boxes and we're like, that was fine, but it's not Baker Street Regulars, is it?
I mean, this has been a very good year to just sit down with another person and really puzzle something out. I've had a great time playing a detective and modern crime board game this year, because that's some really good potboilery stuff where you're pacing the room being like, we know it's this guy, but how is he doing it? So, although I'd say this year's release, which is sort of Detective and Modern Crime Board Games Season 1, as they've sort of taken it into a smaller, lower cost, but sort of, I think the idea is more regular format. Two of the cases are solid bangers, but the middle case is god-awful. Like, it's tripe. We were sat there going like, I can't believe this made it past even the pitch phase. So that was a bummer. But apart from that, Detective also very good for sitting around and just using your noddle a bit.
Another thing to point out as well is that these boxes and cases and stuff, whether it is detective or consulting detective or anything else with the word detective in it, you can play them with any number of people, right? Because you're all just collaborating on something. There's no like, oh, here's your role and here's your role. Oh, sorry, we don't have enough. You can play them solo. You can play them with just like your wife or partner or whatever, or you can play them with like your family members. You can play them over video calls and just read things out to people. So actually, it's a really good lockdown game as well. So for it to pop up this year, fantastic stuff.
All right, I'm gonna jump in here because we've been chatting about storytelling, and I'm gonna bring up Pandemic Legacy Season 0.
Oh yeah,
which was my pick for Game of the Year. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I really love the Pandemic Legacy series. So there's Season 1, Season 2, and now Season 0, which is a prequel. And they've always been really fascinating in terms of the gameplay, the way that they add things over the different months that you play, and they kind of unfold surprises. But those surprises have generally been more on the kind of gameplay side. The stories are in there, they're kind of interesting enough, but it's a kind of post-apocalyptic, world that's been ridden by disease, and you're still trying to do the pandemic thing in most respects. Some of that changes, but it doesn't get too far away from that. But the thing that really surprised me about Season 0, and that I was really I went in thinking this will probably be fine. It's the third one of these. They're always great. Like they know what they're doing, like Rob Daviau and Matt Leacock. But I was most surprised by how much I enjoyed the story and how much I was actually really invested in that world and that kind of storyline. So this is a prequel. It takes place in 1963. Specifically, it's the 12 months of 1963. So it takes place several decades before Season 1 and Season 2. And so there's... Fortunately,
just thinking that's a lesser known version of the 12 Days of Christmas, the 12 months of 1963. Carry
on. But I think particularly this year, it's quite fortuitous that at the beginning of the game, you're not trying to stop a global pandemic, which I can understand why people maybe don't want to go near the pandemic series at the moment, but it is more spy thriller than it is kind of like a medical emergency. There's still that in the background. There are still elements of that, without going too far into spoilers. Like this, that still comes up. It's still part of that universe. It still ties back to that kind of core theme. But most of that game is spy thriller stuff, and it pulls it off really well. It doesn't just feel like, oh, now the cubes are these little kind of agents carrying attaché cases. You have to create teams. You're working as CIA agents, but you can't stay in certain cities because your cover will be blown. You get little passports. It kind of feels true to its theme despite having the name Pandemic on the box. It doesn't just feel like, oh yeah, we've kind of just renamed these cubes.
5 KGBs. Sorry. We played the demo on TTS quite recently for the video channel, and it's bloody lovely. We finished that recording, and I was instantly on WhatsApp to my friend going, "Look, I know you're interested in this too. Why don't we go halves on a copy?" Because it's just it's just really like the nice thing is that it's ending the sort of Pandemic Legacy series on such a high, because I think a legacy game, when you get onto the third one, you kind of have to assume that there's an element of diminishing returns there. But instead, like, boom, here's the 1960s, baby. Which I just think is
Austin Powers.
It's so. I mean, it's just so. It's such a bold move, but they really make it work. And the fact that let's not split hairs here. You are assassinating people as part of your normal duties.
Yeah,
that's
mopping them up.
Yeah, it couldn't be more different than Pandemic normally, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, like the Pandemic series now spans a lot of genres because like it's
true.
I think one thing that like is always carried throughout is just the core mechanics of Pandemic, no matter how much you change them, are just really solid.
Yeah.
Like, it's why it's such a classic. It's why so many people own the base copy, but it's also why there's just so many different versions of it, because it doesn't matter if you're fighting off barbarians in the Roman one or like trying to take down Lovecraftian monsters or whatever. Like that core gameplay loop is so good. So that's what really excites me about the Legacy series for it as well, because they can just build on top of that. I remember seeing someone say that because Risk Legacy was the one sort of that predated that, and it's like building on top of that was cool, but you're still playing Risk, which kind of sucks. So like to play on top of Pandemic was a welcome change. I can't remember who that quote's from, by the way, but I'm sure it was someone very cool and important.
Oh man, I completely forgot about King's Dilemma. I've played a lot of that this year, even though it came out last year. God, what a game.
Having played season 1 this year, like it just makes me very excited to give 2 and specifically 0 a go, just because of seeing how gameplay can be evolved through within the same game in such a dramatic fashion. Like you have games that do have like this is the beginning, but it sort of builds up from here, like deck builders or engine building games. Like that's their conceit, like they start from a certain point, but then things change as like new elements are introduced. But like Legacy games, Pandemic Season 1 does that in such an interesting way. I've never experienced a board game like that, and like the fact that they've managed to do it for 3 games and to have this last one be as good as you say is, Matt, it is really exciting. And I think it's great to have that series that didn't start Legacy games but basically started them, like end in such a great way.
I think it's worth saying as well, it is a prequel. I think you can easily dive in with Season 0 if you've not played any of them, but I think it's strongest in terms of its story when you've played the other 2 and you have that kind of forward knowledge of events that happened, because there were moments where I was like, oh, I recognise that from the other 2 seasons, which I didn't expect at all, because like I say, those storylines are...
How much of a prequel is it? Like, does it still have that sort of like? Is there like a lot of dramatic irony and like things being set up and stuff, or is it just kind of like, oh, it's just in the past?
It starts out. I won't go too much into spoilers because I think half the fun is discovering those little ties, but it doesn't feel detached at all. I think that's what's impressive about it, and it manages to do it in a way where that story, they've introduced the kind of scenario book where you, depending on if you achieve or fail certain objectives or to what degree you achieve them, you will read different entries. And so it manages to branch out and go broad rather than just having, a kind of single through line and then, it splits at the end, which is kind of what the other seasons did. There's more variety there, but it manages to bring it all back in a way that feels, it sets up the other 2 seasons really well. And in a way that actually kind of meant something, having been through those games, being like, like I'm seeing why this was, how we got to there at that point, but 40 years in the past. I think it's really good, and I think genuinely it has some of the best storytelling in a board game. I don't think it's not as dense with text as something like Sherlock Holmes, but I think what's there is really well done, and it tells a really kind of solid story that doesn't just feel, like it's just servicing better gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, from the little snippet we saw as well, it doesn't look like it overstays its welcome, the writing as well, because I think there's a lot of these very sort of like word heavy games where it's like, okay, now you get to read an entry, see you in 10 minutes. Like it's they needed an editor, whereas like I think with with Sherlock and with this, from what I've seen of it as well, like they know not to overstay with welcome and just get that, you know, bitey small paragraph to make you go, ooh, okay, and then carry on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of seasons, finding a tangent onto our next game. Johnny, you played Blood Bowl Season 2 earlier this year.
Yes, I did. And it's bloody glorious. I mean, like, Blood Bowl has always been great. I will say this is the first time I'd actually played the tabletop version, but I played the PC version, the second PC version, rather, quite a bit. And I've played a hell of a lot of Blood Bowl Team Manager, which is like a deck builder, and it's a card game, but it really helps capture the kind of the chaotic nature of Blood Bowl, where, you know, you pile in and you're on a tear and you're like, I'm going to absolutely smash this guy into the ground, and then my runner is going to make it to the end zone and score a touchdown, and then you trip over your own feet and you cause a turnover. It might be my favourite Games Workshop game now, to be honest with you, because
Wow.
When I started out, I went big, and we got big Age of Sigmar armies, and then we were spending all day smashing these enormous lists into one another. And then when I played Warcry, I was like, "Ooh, skirmish! This feels more my tempo. This is kind of more tit for tat and yada yada yada. This is still great fun." And then I played Blood Bowl and went, "I think this might be what I've been looking for the whole time," because it's so silly, but also there are moments of just incredible excitement, and it's just like it's quite a good simulator of those moments in sport where you just go, oh, and then suddenly, you know, everything's, you know, turned upside down. And it's a game where you can use a trained troll to throw a goblin down the field, but you have to roll a die to make sure it doesn't eat it first. Because it's always hungry. If you roll a 1, it's going to try and eat it. So like when I was first sort of going back over the rules, I was playing against myself, and I was having a blast. I was playing a war game against yourself sounds so tedious, but I was like, oh, okay, all right, I think the orcs are really going to score soon. And then I picked up this gobbo with the ball, and I was like, here we go! And then the troll just went, oh, no, and ate him. And I couldn't stop laughing. It was amazing. So yeah, big fan. Good stuff. And the models are lovely.
I've only played the... Oh, sorry. Yeah, the models are gorgeous, actually, especially the ones that we saw on... Especially of your paint jobs as well. That we saw on the Thursday streams. Especially those lovely little toppers that you put on the bases. But yeah, I've only played the video game version of Blood Bowl, but I really want to try this now, because it's it seems to... I think one of the main reasons that people seem to prefer the video game version over the tabletop one was it kind of streamlined a lot of the sort of slower elements. But like from what I've heard of this new season, it seems a lot more zippy, a lot more sort of a lot less, you know, mathematics behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like, you know, your movement is squares, so you don't have to get a tape measure out for that. The only time you need a tape measure is when you're throwing, and you know that's quite a high excitement moment anyway. So yeah, it zips along compared to any other tabletop game. Like compared to, you know, say like Age of Sigmar, it's lightning fast. So even in its slow moments, it's not that slow, and it's just funny. Like I'm sure that there are elements, like if you're in a tournament and you're absolutely eating it, that's not fun. But even losing at this game is like a good giggle. It's just high chaos, and I think that's really lovely.
All right. I can't move out of the high chaos remark, because now let's talk about Fort, which isn't chaotic, but it's just kind of cutesy.
Yeah.
It's lovely. And it's also Alex Meehan's pick for Game of the Year.
Yeah, I love Fort so much. So I didn't get to play it when this lot played it at PAX Unplugged, I believe, last year. But I remember them coming back and just they couldn't stop talking about.
We were just running around like headless chickens all day after we played that. It was great.
They just couldn't stop talking about Fort, and I was like, okay, what's this game? And you know, we knew it was on the radar, and lucky enough, I managed to pick it up for the review. And oh my goodness, I'm so glad I did, because Fort is literally like one of the most perfect games designed for me, because I love deck building games so much. I love the feeling of progression, of like, okay, I'm starting out with this, and then but I'm now gaining more access to this, and it's that satisfying feeling of like slowly accumulating like more options throughout the game of being able to gather more points. And I've never played a deck building game that your hand is so small and yet there are a lot of options available to you, but they're like so esoteric that you're kind of amazed by this. Like I've mostly played it 2-player, and despite that fact, like it's still such an enjoyable experience. Like I think Later Games and I have a very mixed relationship because I love Root and I love Fort, and obviously like Vast not so much.
You love Vast? What are you talking about? Come on.
That game. But I just really think
We're not talking about Vast.
I think they've scored such a blinder with Fort because, like, the theme, for example, I just can't believe it wasn't their first pick because it just fits so much with what you're doing. Like, the whole idea of, oh, this is my friend, but actually no, that they're my friend now. I think that's so both cruel but also incredibly charming. Like, and just that mechanic of your cards you don't hoard your cards, you don't keep them to you. They're like living beings that are kind of existing outside of you, and then other people have the chance to kind of grab them for themselves. And it's just a game that really encourages like player interaction in a way that you don't expect. Like you expect that from a game like Root because, you know, it's asymmetric and its factions are built to bounce off one another, but you don't expect it in a game like Fort, which at its core is just a fun deck building game. But its best elements are when players are interacting with one another and like seeing, oh, what are you doing over there? Okay, I'm going to take this card because I know that stops you from continuing that you know, tactic of grabbing victory points. And yeah, I just think it's such a simple game that has so much potential, and whenever I've played it I've always enjoyed myself, and it's definitely one that I will keep coming back to in the future, just for the way it looks, the way it feels to play. Like, I just want to share it with people so much, and I can't wait to do that next year. So yeah, Fort's really good.
Weirdly, so some of my friends having, you know, I talked it up, obviously. One of them bought it because he really loves Later Games. And then they played it and they were like, yeah, it's fine. Like, we think we need to give it another go, really, but we didn't love it. And now I'm desperate to play it again. So I'm like, no, I need to show you that you're wrong. I need to show you that actually this game's wonderful. And, you know, I need to show you the error of your ways before you decide that it's crap and you never want to play it again. Like, they think Raccoon Tycoon is rubbish. And I'm like, but it's not. I saw that, Matt. I saw that tiny head tilt.
I like Raccoon Tycoon. I gasped.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought that was it's okay.
No. I really like Raccoon Tycoon.
You thought that was a Jarvis subtle.
Well, they're wrong.
I've still only played Fort that one time at PAX, and it's killing me.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Same, to be honest.
It's in the office.
I played it loads over the summer.
I've got a copy here, but I just haven't cracked into it yet because I need to.
Yeah. It's just like it hurt me to leave that copy in the office because I've had that copy since I got it. Like this summer, I've been hoarding it, and then I finally was like, okay, I better bring this back to the office. But it's definitely one that I will keep coming back to in the future because it's lovely and portable. It looks amazing. It's easy to learn. This is the classic. It's easy to learn, but it's
hard to master.
It's hard to master. It's got a lot of depth to it, and I love games like that. Like it just really. I just love it.
Props to you for returning it to the office. To be honest, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, are we doing that
I am
now?
absolutely livid that I didn't take Set a Watch home with me when we went home for the first lockdown because I physically need it.
I miss Set a Watch a lot. I haven't played it in so long.
I put Fort there in the office so that Wills could play it.
Oh,
but
I didn't even know.
I had it there in the office when we filmed.
All right. Oh, yeah, no, of course you did. Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, I thought you brought it back. Oh, never mind. Anyway, whatever. Thank you very much, man.
It's all right.
Unfortunately, the only person that I have available to play games with me doesn't like deck builders, so I'm kind of screwed, to be honest.
I think it is worth saying, like, me and you said this at the start, like, the theme makes such a difference as well. Like, it's refreshing to see something that isn't just another, like, militaristic, like, you're building power. It's all about just kind of making friends. Like, and
it's funny that it began its life as, like, that. Like, it was originally meant to be a Roman military-inspired game, I believe. And then it kind of went back into the drawing board and came out like this. And the theme is just so... Oh, you don't expect it. It's just... It's cute, but it's not, like...
It's vicious as well.
Oh,
It's also incredibly vicious, where you're like, I can't believe you just stole my friend from me.
it's like being on the playground. In the,
it is.
One moment it's like, oh, everyone likes me. I'm sorry, and then suddenly they all walk off to the person next to you, and you're devastated.
Yeah, because they've got glue.
As soon as you said it was
they've got
vicious,
toys and pizza.
as soon as you said it was vicious, I just remembered I have played it a second time on the live stream with both Alexes, and yes, it was vicious.
It was great.
I got absolutely annihilated.
So
Oh my god.
I don't have a better transition than saying this is also a game spelt with 4 letters, but let's talk about Aegon.
I'm sure there's forts in ancient Greece, Matt.
Oh yeah, that's probably a better way of
No,
putting it.
no,
Aegon,
it's got 4 letters. That's the only way I will acknowledge it.
Aegon, I still don't know how it's meant to be.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to have to start speedrunning these, because
I
we've still got
prefer
quite a few to go.
Aegon.
Yeah, I think Aegon sounds nicer, but I have no idea what it actually is supposed to sound like.
But
Aegon is the remaster. It's not really a second edition, I don't think. It's more like a sort of rejigging of the game that was originally called Aegon. But it's been sort of like remastered and fine-tuned, and obviously is a lot prettier now. Which is why it made its way into our most beautiful RPGs list on the YouTube channel.
Oh,
but yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got all of those fantastic design sensibilities that you expect from a John Harper game, and it's just sort of, it's just really good.
I thought you were just pronouncing it different again. I thought you were pronouncing it Ajon. I was like, what? I thought we just agreed on Aegon.
Oh, that tickled me. It's great, and we played it with John.
We should call it
Harper,
Ajon.
and I barely kept my cool. I was.
Yeah, it was squealing.
I genuinely was. He's one of my,
Like a
RPG
little
heroes. Thanks so much.
Well, he is a bit of a legend. And I do always want to point out with Blades of the Dark and with Aegon, Sean Nittner also very good and did a lot of the work on the book, because I think John's name is very well known now, so it means that Sean sort of gets pushed to the side a little bit sometimes. But yeah, they're both very, very good designers, and so many of the sort of mechanical ideas that they've had have spawned so many other things in the RPG world. So I think there's almost a lot to be thankful for from the games they put out. And of course, they've worked from other ideas that have been made and fine-tuned them and stuff like that. But one of my favourite things about John Harper RPGs, because he is a graphic designer as well, you see all of the the way that he maps out systems and shows you visually how they work, especially for someone like me who sucks at reading, is really, really, really welcome. Because I think it's such a good way of showing how something that only ever really works in your brain actually sort of looks on a page and really allows you to sort of flow through the maps of it, which makes it great for people who've not played RPGs before as well, and they can jump in and get fine-tuned and attuned to it.
It's the game that I have wanted to go back to since we played it with John and Alison. I had such fun time just declaring I will take on this challenge. And yeah, I think it's just it's a really fun take on role playing. It feels distinctly different from a lot of stuff out there because of the way that you're declaring before you even roll and things like that. It feels fresh, and it feels like it leans into the heroics that everyone wants to do in role playing games, but sometimes come off as a bit generic or a bit trite. because it's like, oh yeah, you're the great heroes, but here it's part of that narrative. It's like, well, of course we're the great heroes. We're here to declare that to you and then solve your problems.
Super collaborative as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I love the way that the roles work and that you can just build on top of each other's stuff, and it almost feels like a blend of that kind of storytelling and RPG genre.
Can I do the next segue?
Yes, go for it.
From a 4-letter title, we go to a 4-word title. It's
What?
Your Old Vampire.
That's about as good as mine. I'll give you that.
Oh wow!
Oh god!
Tell us about 1,000-Year-Old
Go
Vampire.
Wheels, go!
Yeah, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is fantastic, and if we're going to talk about beautiful RPGs, this is probably one of the most beautiful RPGs of all time. It is absolutely gorgeous. Got this incredible, almost like scrapbook aesthetic, but like cursed medieval scrapbook that has existed for countless hundreds of years, and has just been like battered and left in libraries and scrawled in by a sort of like monster that's losing its mind. It's just absolutely incredible, and that whole aesthetic is very appropriate because that's completely the theme of the game. You know, you're playing as this vampire, but like the idea isn't just that, you know, you're part monster, part man, but you're also like, you know, what does the toll of living through 1,000 years have on a person, and just that idea of like losing your humanity and losing your memories. And you know, we did a live playthrough, myself and Johnny, where we played this amazing bisexual Grecian pirate who was just fantastic, but had such a bitter end. It was such a somber way to end it, but it was like, yeah, like they've lived for 1,000 years. Did you think they were going to go out in a party? Like,
Yeah.
All right, well, hopefully this won't be a bitter end, but finally, let's talk about Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, before we say goodbye.
Wah. Who's excited about Jaws of
Never
the
played it,
Lion?
mate.
Me.
Yeah, I've not played it. Will's
for
played it.
goodness
I've not
sake.
played it either.
oh,
but
really?
I've
It's no one played
Gloomhaven,
it.
so-
I've played 3 scenarios, which means that I have done part of the tutorial. It's good. It's Gloomhaven, but for babies. Not for babies, but you know what I mean. It's Gloomhaven
Wow.
for people who've never played Gloomhaven before, and also maybe are not ready to pick up a box that is heavier than their house. So it's like, you know, it's a little bit more
So-
streamlined. I love the flip book. The flip book's great. You flip a page, there's the map, there's the monster spawned, done.
Oh, clever.
Yeah, that sold me. Anything to stop the 20 minutes of setup required for every scenario, please.
My absolute favourite thing, which is really dweeby, I think I might have said this before on another podcast, my favourite thing is that it's got this sheet of paper at the top of the box when you open it. It's like, hey, there's a lot of things in this box. You might not be ready for that. So here's a comprehensive guide of how to put the game away before you even start playing. So that when you do play, you take like 3 or 4 things out and you're good. And then you put them back in and it's still ready, set up. And it's really refreshing, especially after playing like fantasy flight games where it's like, oh, here's 4 million components and here's a cardboard box that we've made slightly
Yeah, here's a
smaller.
cardboard
Chaos.
trench. Have fun with that, jerk off. Thanks for the £60.
But yeah, no, it's
Wow.
cool. It's nice. Writing seems good so far. I like the characters. I like that there's a character called Hatchet, or is a Hatchet rather, which is one of the Inox, which is the big brutes. But instead, they flipped on his head, and he's the ranged kind of like Bloodborne hunter style kind of figure, and he looks absolutely like he's just come out of Bloodborne, which is quite cool. There you go. That's Jaws of the Line.
All right, excellent.
We do a
Love
quick
it.
shout out to some of the games that haven't come out this year that we've played a lot. I just want to say Root. Can I just say Root and Scythe? That's all I want to say.
You've said 'em
I just
now.
wanna-
It wouldn't be a
You
podcast
mention
if
them
you
on
didn't.
every
Yeah.
other
I just
podcast,
want to
Meehan.
If you've somehow missed the last 38 podcasts where Scythe and Root have been discussed,
I just want to say Root and Scythe are really good. And
Literally every podcast.
I'm so happy that I discovered you, Root and Scythe. You've given
I-
me so much happiness.
yeah, let's balance
Can
this
I give
out.
a quick shout out to Love Letter,
And
please?
Star Realms, yeah.
Yeah,
Star Realm.
Just like to circle back round to Deadlands. I love you, baby.
I'm all in for Root. I'm on the Root team.
Matt's
Oh,
on the
it's-
Root
I mean,
train,
it's
yeah.
good.
Mainly
I
while
just-
I'm winning, while this winning streak continues.
I discovered Root and Scythe this year, and they're 2 of my favourite games now, so
There we go.
All right.
Any
There
shout outs
do
for you,
go.
Wheels? No?
I don't make me think. I've got no brain left. It's December 15th.
You're breaking the magic
Great.
of the podcast.
Nice wheels.
Wheels.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna have to edit that out. I'm gonna beep it.
Yeah, was that on your bingo sheet? Probably because we wrote it after the
It's
episode.
December, beep!
It'd be like one of those Victorian
it'll be
novels where they
Wheels.
put a blank.
It'll be Wheels going, it's December, and then my voice going,
December
24.
21st.
Oh, for goodness sake.
But it's worth saying before we close off that obviously we haven't covered every game or every game we've played this year. There are many other great games that came out this year, some of which we played, some of which we didn't play for various reasons. Hopefully we'll get a chance to cover them at some point. But there's a lot of games, if you didn't notice, that came out this year. And there's a lot of games that will be coming out next year, some of which we have already played, which might make an appearance on our Game of the Year list next year. But we'll have to see what comes out in the next 12 months.
Imagine what our Game of the Year podcast will be like next year.
Probably
Like,
just as chaotic. We're probably
We'll
still
have
using
our
the
own
same jokes
award
about
show called The Breakies. We'll
breakies.
we'll all be in tuxedos in the same
I
room.
will just be
It's
a
gonna be
jar
amazing.
of dust in the corner that occasionally you'll throw
In a
to.
tuxedo.
Ugh.
You're like, what do you think, Johnny? And just cut to the jar of dust.
I genuinely reckon I'll have, like, just a grey head of hair, like, as a natural
Yeah.
grey. Just
I was about to say, well, I mean, you probably would have dyed it that colour, right? 'Cause-
No, before anyone makes that assumption, no.
All right.
Just, working with y'all.
Wow.
Wow.
What a note to end
I won't take
2020
it
on.
personally.
Take that, 2020.
I have. But yeah,
I
it's.
joke. I love you all.
I think we can maybe all agree, but somebody tell. I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong. But it's been a strong year for games, despite a lot of games being pushed out this year. We've seen some really interesting stuff come out, and a lot of stuff, despite all the challenges. When we can go from The Crew to Cosmic Frog to Deadlands to Pandemic to Blood Bowl to Fort to Aegon to 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. That's a huge variety of stuff and experiences. So I don't think there's been any kind of lacking of interesting new creators and ideas out there.
And speaking of new, what a Dicebreaker. Only just gone for our past year. And the winner of the Dicebreaker Best Tabletop Publisher / Publication, I meant publication, but I said the wrong word, award is Dicebreaker.
Hey!
Wow.
Yes, we celebrated
Yeah,
our first
speech.
year.
We did, and what
What
a
a
year!
year.
But
What a bloody year.
we've done some incredible stuff. Like, if people want to catch up on the last year, or let's say the entirety of Dicebreaker, which is about a year and a bit, you can do so. You can find us on youtube.com/Dicebreaker. You can find us on Dicebreaker.com. You can find us on Twitter @JoinDicebreaker. You can, of course, find us here on the Dicebreaker podcast every week.
Where we talk about fort and side.
Yeah, where we talk
Every
about
week.
board games, sometimes in between other things.
I can't believe this.
But,
It's the person who has been playing Love Letter for what feels like the past 6 months
game,
is
mate.
having a go at me.
Good game. They all are.
Yeah, at least she's been
Yeah.
playing something. I turn up to every podcast saying, "Oh, I haven't played anything this week." Yeah.
but there have been some fantastic games, and there will be no doubt some fantastic games arriving next year, which we will hopefully bring to you and have a chance to play ourselves. But until we return with another Dicebreaker podcast in the year 2021, thank you for being here and for being with us all the time, Johnny Chiodini,
You're welcome. That was meant to
Alex
be done.
Lolies,
You're welcome.
Michael Wheel and Wheels,
Wow, you're welcome.
Alex Meehan.
You're welcome.
I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for listening. Have a safe, happy holidays. Have a happy new year. We will see you in 2021. But until then, just have a lovely day. Have a lovely year.
Yeah.
We will see you soon. Bye.